Hello everyone, welcome back to the next video. So React Native 77 was just released. So let's go through this blog post. So React Native 77 new styling features, Android 16 KB page support, Swift template. So this release ships several features, new styling capabilities such as support for display content, box sizing, mix blend mode, outline related properties to provide a powerful layout option, Android 16 KB page support to be compatible with newer Android devices. We are also modernizing the community template by migrating it to Swift while continuing to support and maintain compatibility with Objective-C for developers who prefer it. So I think this is a good thing. They have finally changed the template for iOS to use Swift. Like, it has been almost 11 years since Swift was first introduced for native iOS development, and finally React Native has catched up. So yeah, that's the good thing. But they still haven't told us, like, as far as the documentation is concerned for creating turbo modules or fabric views. They still haven't updated the documentation on how to use it with Swift. It is still in Objective C++. Hopefully they update it soon at that as well. Then here is new CSS feature for better layout, sizing and blending, Android version 15 support and 16 KB page support, community CLI and template updates, breaking changes, removal of console log streaming in Metro. So if you're using console logs, they won't be appear inside your Metro bundler. You will have to use those React Native dev tools for that. So let's see new CSS feature for better layout, sizing and blending. React Native 77 furthers our goal of aligning React Native with the web. We have added support for new CSS property to give you more control over your app's layout, sizing and blending. These changes can help you simplify complex layout, add texture and make your app more accessible. Simpler layouts with display contents. And also note, all these features are only available for the new architecture. So the new architecture is enabled by default for React Native 77. I think it is from 76 and above, so you don't have to worry about it. The display content props allow an element to disappear from the layout structure while its children are still rendered as if they were direct children of the parent element. It can be useful for styling purpose where you want to apply styles to child element without affecting the layout. When building wrapper components which must handle events, or if you need to interact with the shadow tree, technically speaking, display content renders an element without generating a layout box, but it preserves the layout boxes of the element children. The element with display content is effectively flattened out of the view hierarchy. Let's have a look at this example where we want to display an alert. When a widget is pressed, we have a red widget inside of a container view. So we have a red widget. This is the container. Now let's build a new alerting wrapper component with the goal of alerting the user when a component beneath it is pressed using the experimental pointer events. For clarity, the background of this component is made blue. That might look something like the component below. So here they have created this alerting component, and on pointer down we are just pressing an alert. So here you can see we are wrapping this alerting with a different widget, and this doesn't do quite what we want. Alerting adds a new layout box with its own bound separate from the children widget. Depending on the style of the element it is wrapping, this may result in significant visual and functional changes. In the example, the blue background responds to the tab with an alert when we want for only the red hello world box to alert when tapped. If we try this again while setting display contents on the view wrapper of alerting, we only see alerts from the alerts when the user presses with the original bounds of the widget. This is because alerting no longer adds its own box but can still observe the pointer events bubbled from widget. So you will have to add this style display colon contents. Rest everything will remain the same. Then box sizing. The box sizing prop defines how elements various sizing props width, height, min height, etc. are computed. If box sizing is border box, these sizes apply to the border box of the element. If it is content box, they apply to the content box of the element. The default value is border box. This is different from the default value on the web. The web documentation is a good source of information if you wish to learn more about how these props work. Border box has been the default forever at this point and has been the only box sizing value up until we added content box. Changing the default would have been a breaking change that would suddenly break several layouts. We decided to keep border box as default value to ensure backward compatibility. To understand the difference between border box and content box, have a look at this two example where views have a padding of 20 and border width of 10. When using border box, we consider border and padding for the sizing. When using content box, we consider only the content for sizing. CSS mix blend mode. The mix blend mode prop lets you control how an element blends its color with other element in stacking context. Check out the MDN documentation for full overview of each blending function to help have more granular control about what is blending together. We have also added the isolation property. Setting isolation colon isolate on a view will force it from stacking context, so you can set this on some ancestor view to ensure that some descendant view with mixed blend mode does not blend beyond the isolated view. Mixed blend mode values normal, the element is drawn on top of its background without blending. Multiply, the source color is multiplied by its destination color and replaces the destination. Screen multiplies the complements of the backdrop and source color values, then complements the result. Overlay multiplies or screens the colors depending on the backdrop color value. Darken selects the darker of the background and source colors. Lighten selects the lighter of the background and source color. Color dodge brightens the backdrop color to reflect the source color. Painting with black produces no change. Color burn darkens the backdrop color to reflect the source color. Painting with white produces no change. Hard light multiplies or screens the color depending on the source color value. This effect is similar to shining a harsh spotlight on the backdrop. Soft light darkens or lightens the colors depending on the source color value. This effect is similar to shining a diffuse spotlight on the backdrop. Difference subtracts the darker of the two constituent colors from the lighter color. Exclusion produces an effect similar to that of the difference mode but lower in contrast. Hue creates a color with hue of the source color and saturation and luminosity of the backdrop color. Saturation creates a color with saturation of the source color and the hue and luminosity of the backdrop color. Color creates a color with the hue and saturation of the source color and the luminosity of the backdrop color. This preserves the gray levels of the backdrop and is useful for coloring monochrome images or tinting color images. Luminosity creates a color with the luminosity of the source color and hue and saturation of the backdrop color. This produces an inverse effect to that of the color mode. Outline props, we have also introduced outline width, outline style, outline spread and outline color. This outline props work very similar to the respective border props, but it is rendered around the border box as opposed to around the padding box. This props allows to highlight elements by drawing their outline without affecting their layout. Check out the MDN documentation for more details. So here they have given one example as well. Android version 15 support and 16 KB page support. Forced H2H on Android 15. We have already done some work to support Android 15 on the prior release. One of the noticeable changes in Android 15 is forced H2H display when you build apps with target SDK 35. If you haven't looked into this yet, please refer to our prior recommendation on how this should be handled, as ignoring this can potentially break your UI in the app. If you are using React Native safe area context in your app, this library is already handling the forced H2H for you. 16 KB page size support for Android. Android 15 introduces support for 16 KB memory page size, enabling performance improvements for app and more, but making previous 4K KB based app potentially incompatible for future devices. It is currently an opt-in feature for developer to select to test on select device to prepare for 16 KB page size being the OS default. With the 0.77 release, React Native is ready to fully support 16 KB page size, and developers will be able to test and ship apps for 16 KB devices using it. Please refer to the official Android developer site for further information on 16 KB support. Community CLI and template updates. Community CLI React Native init deprecation. This version fully completely deprecates completes the deprecation of the React Native init command that was introduced in React Native 75. As a reminder, you won't be able to use the React Native init command anymore, but you will have to either use a framework such as Expo with its own dedicated command to create a project, npx create expo app, or invoke the community CLI directly with npx React Native community CLI init. Community CLI removal of run on iOS Android key handlers from Metro. In this version, we have removed the A and I keyboard shortcuts from Metro. Those shortcuts were used to invoke run Android and run iOS community CLI commands. Those keyboard shortcuts provided worse developer experience and were rarely used. Moreover, we believe that frameworks are better suited to orchestrate the terminal outputs. You can read more about this change in this dedicated blog post. Community template Swift as a programming language for iOS. These projects using Expo should not be affected by this change because Expo already uses Swift. This change lets us slim down the community template by replacing three files, main.m, appdelegate.h, and appdelegate.mm with a single new appdelegate.swift. This is technically a breaking change. You will see the change from Objective-C to Swift in the upgrade helper like this. You don't have to migrate to Swift. The Objective-C++ variant of the iOS community template is still supported. Note that you will still need to integrate the RCT app dependency provider. New projects will be generated by using Swift as the iOS app language, although you can always migrate back to Objective-C if you need to. Limitations: if your app has some local modules that are written in C++, you will not be able to register them in Swift as shown in this guide. If your app falls in this category, please skip the migration of app delegate to Swift and keep using Objective C++ for your app. React Native core is mostly developed using C++ to encourage code sharing between iOS and Android and other platforms. This interoperability between Swift and C++ is not mature nor stable yet. We are looking into ways to fill this gap and let you migrate to Swift to RCT app dependency provider. React Native 77 slightly changes how the app load third-party dependency. This is a new line in the community template that, if missed, can cause some runtime issues. Make sure to add it to your app. The equivalent Objective-C lines are the following: appdelegate.mm. So here we just add this particular import and we add the self.dependency provider, RCT app dependency provider new. Breaking changes: removal of console log streaming in Metro. We want every aspect of React Native debugging to behave reliably and to match the functionality of modern browser tooling. To meet this quality bar, log forwarding via Metro, originally deprecated in 76, is removed in 77. This integration relied on a custom approach to communicate with the debugging direction on device. With this change, we are moving exclusively to the Chrome DevTools protocol. To view JS log, please use the React Native DevTools, and its fully featured console panel supports log filtering, rich object inspection, live expressions, and more. You can also connect VS Code as a CDP debugger via a third-party extension such as Expo Tools or and Radon IDE. Please note that these integrations are not directly supported by the React team. However, we are working on a first-party VS Code support. In 2025, Expo continues to offer log streaming in Expo CLI. For more info, see why JavaScript logs leaving Metro. Other breaking changes: general animation, native looping animation. Do not send a React state update every time the loop ends. A layout position of sticky headers on scroll view will now be taken into account. Absolute positioning is now behaving in a more compliant way. JS modules remove React Fabric internals module. This is not going to be accessible anymore. Native modules object can now be used to load turbo modules in JS. This improves compatibility between native modules and turbo native modules. Packages dev middleware framework should specify server base URL relative to the middleware host. API changes: remove type for use concurrent root from app registry as it was ignored already. Removed refs property from native method TypeScript definition. UX changes: remove run on iOS and run on Android from dev server key commands. Kotlin. This is the first version of React Native that builds against Kotlin 2.0.21. You can read more about changes coming with Kotlin 2.0 in the language release notes. API changes: nullability, non-primitive getters in readable array are now correctly typed as optional. Make React host create surface method not nullable. Renamed dev support manager base dot get current context to dev support manager base dot get current React context. Additional several APIs have been removed or restricted in visibility, so they can't be accessed anymore. Those APIs were internal and not needed to React Native developers directly. You can find the full list below. So yeah, you can check out all these things. The following classes are now either internal or have been removed, so can't be accessed anymore. So yeah, if you are accessing one of these classes, you should remove them. iOS API changes: removed RCT constant .rct get memory pressure unload level. Partial batch did flush. RCT runtime executor use native view config in bridgeless mode replaced by a proper feature flag. Use turbo module interop for all turbo modules. Interop layer is always on for turbo modules changed. Replace uses of CG color ref with UI color. RCT app delegate now requires to use RCT dependency provider to load third-party dependency. CocoaPod sets C++ version for all third-party dependencies to avoid a compilation issue. React 19 was released on 6 December 2024. At that time, we already cut the branch for React Native 77, and we already released 3 RCs for React Native 77. It was too late in the release of React Native 77 to introduce React 19 in this release. React 19 will be shipped in React Native 78, and we already cut the branch for this version. You can try by creating a new app with the command. Acknowledgements. So yeah, these are all the people who have supported, and thank you for all their hard work. So yeah, this is how you can upgrade. Please use the React Native upgrade helper to view code changes between React Native for existing projects, and to create a new project you can use just this particular command. If you use Expo, React Native 77 will be supported in Expo SDK 52. Instruction on how to upgrade will be available in separate Expo blog post in the near future. So Expo also published their blog. So here you can see today React Native 77 was released, and Expo SDK 52 now supports both React Native 76 and 77. Typically an Expo SDK version is tied to a specific React Native version. For example, Expo SDK 50 was only tested against and expected to be compatible with React Native 73, and tools such as Expo CLI and Docker will validate that you are using the expected version. We have decided that this is unnecessary for React Native 77, as as a result, this should be even and quicker upgrade than usual if you choose to upgrade. Why no full SDK release for React Native 77? The 77 release include a number of bug fixes and improvements, but React Native engineers at Meta considered it to be a relatively small release. To minimize the disruption of SDK release, we opted for adding support for both 76 and 77 to the same SDK release. Previously, we have taken this approach with React Native 74 and 75 with SDK 51. How to use React Native 77 with Expo SDK 52? The default React Native version for Expo SDK 52 will continue to be 76. You can opt into the version 77 by following these steps. Alright, exclude packages from version validation. All Expo packages will work with both 76 and 77 version. However, some other popular libraries that we include in the Expo SDK and validate against do not have releases that are compatible with both versions simultaneously. For example, React Native Reanimated does not support React Native 77. You will need to use React Native Reanimated 3.16.7. To avoid warnings about incompatible version, you can exclude packages from version validation. This is done by adding the expo install exclude property to your package.json file. For example, something like this. This will ensure that Expo tools will not warn you about incompatible version of React Native and React Native Reanimated, as long as the Expo SDK that you are using is recommending the specified version. So when you update to Expo SDK, this exclusion will no longer apply because the recommended version will have changed. Install updated packages. Firstly, update Expo to the latest version, to at least version 52.0.27. Then install dependencies compatible with React Native 77. So like React Native 77, React Native reanimated gesture handler, screens, safe area context, and React Native web view. Upgrade your native projects. If you use CNG and have run pre-build locally, you will need to run Expo npx expo pre-build dash dash clean again to regenerate the native projects to pull in changes that make the app compatible with React Native 77. If you do not use CNG, you will need to bump Kotlin and NDK version in your Android project. For more details, refer to the native project upgrade helper. What's next? We'll continue working on improving Expo and bringing in support for React Native 78 later this year. If you run into any issues with React Native 77 and Expo SDK 52, please file an issue. So here, with the help of the React Native community template, with this I have created a React Native project with version 77. The only thing which I wanted to show you is the iOS part. Previously, if you remember, we used to get that header file and objective C++ file, so that everything has been removed, and finally we get to see just an app delegate file, which is a good thing according to me. So yeah, that's it. Let me know what you think about this release in the comments. Thank you for watching. Bye.